Greetings, mighty companions, and welcome back to Practical and Healing Applications of A Course in Miracles with me, annarebeccaquinn. Thank you for joining this broadcast and this class. I appreciate you being here, using your precious time to join this broadcast. And what we do here every Monday is we talk about A Course in Miracles. This is a Course in Miracles class. The name of this class is The Practical and Healing Applications of A Course in Miracles. That's what this class is about, is hearing the ideas of A Course in Miracles, hearing what the Course in Miracles is saying in whatever section we're going to be studying, and applying these ideas. This is a curriculum in the application, the practical application of these ideas. Why? Because when these ideas are applied, miracles are the result. This is a course in miracles. This is a curriculum that enables us to experience miracles of peace and joy and healing and abundance as natural as breathing is to our body. This is a course in miracles. And what is a miracle? It's experiencing peace and joy and abundance and safety when you were afraid, when you didn't think that that was possible. So this is A Course in Miracles. That's what we're going to be talking about. It is a curriculum for healing our mind. And A Course in Miracles says that everything is generated from mind, that the true cause and effect relationship in reality is that the mind is the causal level. Whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're perceiving, is coming from the level of the mind, your thoughts, your ideas, and everything you are experiencing in the world is the effect. So this is a course in mind training, the correction of false ideas about ourselves that we learned in the past, and the truth about ourselves, the ideas that are true about ourselves. So the Course in Miracles says that whatever we're suffering from is a misperception. It is a false idea that we have about ourselves and about reality that we learn from the past, about how we are separate and guilty and alone. And that the correction of those false ideas with the loving truth about ourselves, that is where we experience the miracles of peace and joy and abundance. All right. So where we're going to be at today is, let me change the setting on this real quick. All right. So let's turn this off. Going to be at today. Let's turn that off. And let's see here. I'm going to change the privacy here. All right. Okay, guys. So now we're live on Facebook. And where we're at today in the book is we are going to be in the teacher's manual. So in A Course in Miracles, there's 3 parts to this curriculum: the text, the workbook, and the teacher's manual. And we're going to be in the teacher's manual today. And the way that I decided we were going to do the teacher's manual was, before class, I did what I call the random number generator prayer, and I asked Spirit, the healing spirit that we all share, to decide for us, all of us, whoever's going to watch this at whatever time, to decide for us what and where in A Course in Miracles that it would have us to study today. And so I put in 3 for the 3 books in the curriculum into the random number generator. It picked 3, which is the teacher's manual. I put in the number 29 because there's 29 sections, and it chose, Spirit through the random number generator chose section number 25. And the title of this is Are Psychic, and psychic is in quotations, are psychic powers desirable? So that's what it's going to talk about. It's going to answer the question about what are psychic powers. And I love how in the original edition of A Course in Miracles, the unedited version of A Course in Miracles, the word psychic in this title is in quotations. Now, in the edited version of A Course in Miracles, the word psychic is not in quotations. So that tells us a lot about the section. But the name of this is Are, quote, psychic powers desirable? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking a lot about the mind, how the mind works, what is the nature of the mind, what is communication, what's the true nature of communication, and how to free your mind up to be more natural, okay? To take the limits off of your mind that you think is on your mind that really isn't on your mind. All right. So, hi, Jean. Lovely to see you. Hi, Trisha. That's wonderful. Trisha says they just happened. That's right. Um, Beautiful. Lovely to see you guys. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. Now, help me out, guys. I've got a different kind of system going on here. I don't have my regular camera. Got a new mic. So let me know if the music's too loud. Let me know if you can hear me okay, see me okay. And just let me know as we go along. Okay. I know my camera looks a little strange to me because I'm using the computer camera instead of my regular webcam. So just let me know how it is, and I'll see if I can adjust if need be. All right. Coming through great. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay. Love to hear that. That's a miracle. Whenever it works right, it just always feels like a miracle. So, okay, guys. So let's see. So here's where we're at. Teacher's Manual, question number 25. And if you're new to A Course in Miracles and you have A Course in Miracles book, it's the third book in the curriculum. So if you have a book, then it'll be the third. Oh, that's not even the right one. I don't have it up here. But anyway, so you guys know where it is. Okay, so I'm going to read from the section, and we're going to try to understand what it's saying, and then we're going to talk about how to apply it. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free. If you have any questions about how to apply this or what this would mean in any given situation that you're experiencing, feel free to ask that question, right? Hi, Irene, lovely to see you. Wonderful to see you, ladies, and to feel your energy. It makes me feel so good to see your name and feel your energy. Thank you for being here. Okay. All right, guys, here we go. Are psychic powers desirable? All right. It says the answer to this question is much like the preceding one. And it says there are, of course, no quote unnatural powers. There are no unnatural powers. And it is obviously merely an appeal to magic to make up a power that does not exist. Hi, Shahira. Lovely to see you. Okay, we got some serious girl power going here in the house. Okay. It says, now, it is equally obvious, however, that each individual has many abilities of which they are unaware. So we're going to start with that. It's obvious that all of us have many abilities that we are unaware of. Okay. Now, as our awareness increases, we may well develop abilities that seem quite startling to us. So I love that. So we all have abilities that we are not aware of. To me, that's very exciting. It gives me hope. There's something to look forward to, developing abilities that I'm not aware of. Just the idea that I have a lot of abilities that I'm not aware of that I can develop is very exciting. That's very one. It gives me something to look forward to. It gives me something to look forward to. Okay. Now, and then I love how it says that these abilities that we all have that we're not aware of, how do we develop them? Well, it says as your awareness increases. So that's the goal here. That's the curriculum that we're working in. This is a curriculum that is helping us to increase our awareness. Okay, that's what we're learning how to do here, to increase our awareness, to increase our awareness of the truth, to increase our awareness of who we are, to increase our awareness about the nature of reality, to increase our awareness of the abilities that we have that we don't know about yet. That's what this curriculum, one of the many things that this curriculum is helping us to do, to increase our awareness of who we are, our reality, to increase our awareness of the many abilities that we have that we're unaware of. Like, for instance, our psychic abilities. Now, I'm sure most of you people in here so far are becoming more and more aware of your quote psychic abilities. Now, Course in Miracles is telling us those are just natural. It's not a special ability, that's natural. Being psychic is an ability that truly is natural to our mind. And it only seems like an unnatural ability if you are unaware of some of your abilities. Okay. And and for all of you who have been studying the course for a while, I know that you are experiencing the increase in your so-called psychic abilities, right? So Shahira says yes. Shira has says many, exactly. And that's one of the wonderful side effects of studying A Course in Miracles, is that ability, that what we call psychic ability, is increasing, you know. So, and the more your so-called psychic abilities increase, then the more you know, the safer you are, the more joyous you are, the more connected you feel to all around you, and the more safe that you feel. Really, remember, knowledge is power, knowledge is safety. The more you know about the truth, the more you know about the people you're around and the environment you're around, the more you know, the more you're aware of, the safer that you are and the safer you feel. All right. Thank you, Trisha, Teacher's Manual page. Thank you, Trisha, very much there. Okay. So it says, now, as your awareness increases, you may well develop abilities that seem quite startling to you. I know that everybody in here, I know that you know that's true. Now, yet nothing you can do can compare, even in the slightest, with the glorious surprise of remembering who you are. So, whatever abilities you develop, whatever abilities you have that you discover and develop within you, there's still nothing. They don't even compare in the slightest to the glorious surprise of remembering who you are. Now, I almost titled this section, The Glorious Surprise of Remembering Who You Are. Now, that's what this curriculum is really about. Remembering who you are. And Course in Miracles is telling us that the who you are that this curriculum helps you to remember is so glorious that that any ability you develop, no matter how wondrous it is, can even compare in the slightest to the glorious surprise of remembering who you are. So that's what we're doing here. It's not about changing yourself to become something better. It's not about even becoming something else that you're not now. This is a curriculum whose purpose is to help you remember who you are. You don't need to change who you are. You don't need to even become who you are. All you need to do is remember who you are. And that is the most glorious surprise, the most wondrous thing that can be. I just love that. And then, so it says, so let's let all of our learning and all of our efforts be directed toward this one great and final surprise of remembering who we really are. Isn't that beautiful? That all we really need to do to experience the ultimate fulfillment and joy and abundance and peace is remember something. The only problem is that we forgot something. That's the only problem, is that we forgot something. The problem is not that we're not good enough. The problem is that we're inadequate. The problem is not that we're missing something. The problem is not that we, need to become something that we're not right now. The problem is not that we got to go find something that we don't have right now. The problem is not that we got to make ourselves into something beautiful and wonderful and abundant. That is not the problem. That is not what we need. The only thing that we are suffering from, the only thing that's keeping us from experiencing the lasting joy and abundance and peace that we are, is just that we don't know who we've forgotten who we are, which means we used to know who we are. We used to, but we forgot. Of Course in Miracles says we forgot when a tiny, mad, insane idea crossed our mind that we could be something that we're not, like separate or guilty, and we forgot to laugh at it. That's what the Course in Miracles tells us, is how we forgot what we are. Isn't that beautiful? You don't have to do anything. Don't have to change anything. Don't have to make anything. Don't have to look for anything. Don't have to find anything. Don't have to get anybody outside of you to change. You don't even have to get the world outside of you to change. Thank God. All you got to do is decide that you want to remember what you forgot. God, I want to remember what I forgot because it was the truth. I want to remember who I am. I want to remember who you created me to be, that I used to know, but I forgot. How about that? What a beautiful prayer that is. I love it. Tricia says, we need to ask Spirit, what do I need to do to learn right now to get peace? Exactly. Well, so this is a course in remembering. This is not a course in changing anything. And the Course in Miracles says you don't need, it says, seek not to change the world. Seek not to change the world, but just seek to remember who you are. And the way we remember who we are is we ask the source. We go to the horse's mouth and we go, God, since you're the one who created me, you're the one who should know what I am. And so I'm asking you, God, and I'm asking your voice that's within me, that you put within me. Thank you very much for that. And I'm asking, what is the truth about me that you created? How did you create me to be? What do you know about me? Help me to remember who I really am, who you created me to be, because obviously I've forgotten, because now I'm unhappy and thinking I got to do something and make something and change something. I think I got to get something. Oh, so many things I think I got to do in order to be happy. And all the things I think I got to do to make me happy. Well, first of all, they don't work, or else I'd be blissed out right now. They That's the first part, is that all the things I think I need to do and change outside of me, obviously that doesn't work. And number two, it's exhausting, right? That requires a lot of time and energy to do something that's impossible to do anyway. I can't experience peace and joy and abundance. I can't experience that by tr- trying to change myself or change the world or others around me. If I could become happy and fulfilled by changing myself or changing those around me, then I would be happy. Right now, I'd be completely fulfilled. I would be experiencing no need and no lack right now. Yes, she here says, I forgot, and now I am asking to remember. Exactly. Trisha says, Lord, let me know what I forgot at home. Exactly. You know that feeling when you've left home and you're like, I know I've forgotten something, but I just don't know what it is. Well, that's true right now. I know I've forgotten something, and that's my problem. Not that I haven't done enough and I don't know what to do, or I can't do it good enough. My problem is just that I have forgotten who I am. I've forgotten who I am. I've forgotten that I did not create myself. I've forgotten that I did not create myself. The Course tells us that that that's the thing that we should be telling ourselves. I did not create myself. I did not create that person. I did not create myself. And the reason it tells us to tell or to remember that is so that we will stop asking ourselves what we are. Stop asking yourself. Stop asking the world, what am I? Stop asking the world what you are. Stop asking yourself what you are. Look at the answer you've given yourself. When you're asking yourself, who am I, what's my worth, what's my value, you're asking yourself, then all we come up with is, I'm inadequate, I'm not good enough, I'm missing something, I should be different. um, I'm a body, I'm guilty, I should be afraid of everyone and everything. That's what we come up with as an answer when we turn to ourselves and ask ourselves what we are. And the Course in Miracles is teaching us to turn to remember we did not create ourselves, and so what we are is not up to us, and that we should turn to our source, our creator, and ask the one who would know, because it's what created us. So that's what the Course in Miracles is helping us to do. So the Course in Miracles says, when you are questioning your worth or value, it's because you have forgotten you didn't create yourself, and you should say to yourself, you should remember, God Himself established my worth. God Himself established my value. That's what the Course in Miracles says we should remember whenever we are questioning our worth and value. Okay. All right. So then it says, right. Says, let all our learning and all our effort be directed toward this one great final surprise, of remembering who we are. And then we won't be content to be delayed by the little surprises that may come to us on the way. Okay. I love it. So, what does it say? It says, let all our learning, which means all of our efforts, be directed towards this one great and final surprise of remembering who we are. Okay. So, whatever you're doing right now that's not producing peace and joy and abundance, okay, switch your efforts. Now, put your efforts toward remembering who you are instead of whatever you had been making an effort toward that isn't and hasn't produced the peace, joy, and abundance that you desire and that you deserve. Okay. Whatever you've been doing, whatever efforts you've been making that haven't been producing peace and joy and love and abundance, then stop those efforts and now utilize your efforts on behalf of going, I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time asking my source, my creator, who I am and see what happens. All right. Beautiful. Shahira says, I forgot and now I'm asking to remember. Beautiful. This is what we should be putting our efforts, investing our efforts toward, directing all of our efforts toward. All right. Now, that was paragraph number 1. Wonderful. So, and thank you guys for hitting like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate that. That lets the algorithm know that this content is important, and it pushes it out to more people. The more likes, the more sharing and subscribing that happens, the more the algorithm pushes it out. And what does the world need more but these ideas? So thank you for doing that. And also, if you would like to, I love how I spelled super shazats. Super shazats. Thank you for that donation. If you would like to support this ministry, you can do that by doing a super chat. And thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right, so here we go. We're in paragraph 2. And it says, certainly there are many so-called psychic powers that are clearly in line with this course. Why? Because communication is not limited to the small range of channels the world recognizes. I'll say that again. Communication is not limited to the small range of channels that this world recognizes. So this world recognizes only a small range of communication channels, like the phone, your mouth, person to person. The world recognizes only an extremely small range of communication channels. The world tells you that if you don't have a phone or a computer, then you can't talk to somebody who's on the other side of the world, much less on the other side of the universe. That's what the world believes, that if you cannot communicate with a device, a physical device, or you're in person, you can't communicate with somebody who's not in your immediate vicinity. Okay. I love that. Now, if communication was limited to the small range of channels that the world recognizes, then there would be little point in even trying to teach healing, right? If the only communication we could do is through the body with somebody we could reach by phone or computer, then there'd be no point in even trying to teach healing, okay? Because healing is not limited by the communication channels that the world recognizes. So there'd be little point in even trying to teach the universal healing if communication was limited to the small range of channels that the world recognizes. Right, because healing would be impossible to do if communication was limited to the small range of channels the world recognizes. And the limits that the world places on communication are the chief barriers to direct experience of the healing spirit that is in each of one of us. The healing spirit within us, whose presence is always there and whose voice is always available, but for the hearing. Wow. That is so beautiful. Yeah. So believing that unless I can see it, unless I can hear it with my body's ears, unless the communication is happening through my eyes or my ears or a phone or a computer, then there's no communication happening. That belief is one of the chief barriers to what? To direct experience of the Holy Spirit, who's a presence that is always there and whose voice is always available for the hearing. Okay. So if you think that you can't receive communication unless it's through the ears or a phone or a computer, then you have done what? Then you have put a barrier between you and the spirit of healing that is within your mind, that you can't see with your eyes, that you can't hear with your ears, but is always available, whose presence is always available for you, and whose voice is always available, but for your desire to hear. So the spirit of healing, okay, is something that you can't see with your eyes and you don't hear with your ears. So if you're limiting communication to your eyes and your ears and your phone or your computer, then you are not going to be able to hear the voice of the healing spirit, who is a presence that is always within you. If you think you can't communicate except with your body, your eyes and your ears, a phone or a computer, something physical, then you won't be able to hear the voice of the healing spirit who is within you, but whom is invisible, right? So I love it how it says, so believing that that you can only communicate with the body or something physical limits you from hearing and feeling the presence of the voice for healing that is always within you and always available to you, but for the hearing, right? If you can't communicate except with your eyes and your ears, then you're not going to be able to hear the voice of the healing spirit within you, who doesn't have a body, right? And that's why, so the God isn't physical, the healing spirit, Holy Spirit within you, it's not physical. So if you think you can only communicate through something physical, then you won't be able to hear or feel the voice of spirit within you, and you won't be able to hear its messages to you, which are not coming through a physical communication device. It's coming from within your own mind. All right. Now, and so I love it. So so if you think you can't hear the voice for God, if you think you can't hear the voice for spirit within you, It's only because you are believing that if you can't hear it with your ears or see it with your eyes, and it comes through a physical medium, then it's not there to communicate with you, to give healing to you. If you're not hearing the voice for God, hearing the voice for healing within yourself, it's only because you are limiting communication to something physical, thinking you can't hear it or see it unless you can touch it or hear it with your eyes. Okay. So if you want to increase your ability to hear the voice of spirit, then remember that communication is not limited by the body. The communication is not limited to or by the body or anything physical. Communication is not limited by anything physical. You don't need something physical to hear the voice of love and truth and healing within you. The only thing you need to communicate with the voice of healing within you is a desire to hear it. What does it call it? It says that uh, a desire to hear it, a willingness to hear it. That's it. Isn't that beautiful? So there's no limit on your ability to hear, to receive communication from your higher self, from any loving, wise, helpful being anywhere. There are no limits on your ability to communicate with your higher self, with source, with your guides and teachers, with the helpers of humanity who are legion, who want to communicate with us, who want desperately to communicate with us and share with us the truth about ourselves. But we are limiting our ability to communicate with them. We are limiting their ability to communicate with us by our belief that communication can only happen through something physical. Okay. Now, these limits on communication that we are putting on communication, they are placed out of fear. I'm placing limits on communication between me and my higher self because I'm afraid. I'm placing the limits on my ability to communicate with spirit, the healing spirit, the one who knows the answer to everything I'm going through, out of fear. Okay. Because without my fears, the walls that surround all the separate places of the world would fall at the holy sound of Spirit's voice. If I wasn't afraid to be in full communication with Source, with all my guides and teachers, with all the beings in the world who are there trying to offer their helpfulness, if I wasn't afraid to hear their voice and to receive their answers and their support and their care, then all the walls that surround all the separate places of the world, the bodies, they would just fall at the sound of love's voice, of God's voice. Amazing. If I wasn't afraid to hear the voice for God, if I wasn't afraid to hear the voice of the healing spirit within me, then all the walls that I think disconnect me from source and disconnect me from all the beings that don't have a body, that are invisible to my eyes, would fall, at the sound of love's voice. Yes. Tricia says, mine came as electric shock to people when I touched them. Exactly. That's also a form of communication. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So We think there are walls separating us from everything in the universe. We think there are walls separating us and source and us and spirit and all the beings in the universe, but there really aren't. There are no walls that separate us from communicating with source and every living thing, every created thing. There are no walls. There are no barriers to communication unless we are afraid of that communication. I can talk to God anytime, anywhere. I can talk to, all living beings, all of creation, anywhere in this world and other worlds. There is no barriers to our communication with all that lives, even unto our source. And it's only our fear of experiencing that communication, being in direct communication with source and all of creation. It's only our fears that make us believe that there are barriers to communication. Any living being, anything that lives, we can communicate with. And I just love that idea, because that means that at any time that I have any kind of problem or issue or question, I literally can ask all of creation. I could ask Einstein any question, I could ask God any question. And who knows more than God? You know, there are no barriers between me and communication with God, the source of everything. I mean, who better to ask for any question, anything? Well, so what problem could really cause me fear if I knew that I was unlimited in my ability to ask questions of all of creation? You know, what problem could really pose a problem? What problem could really be a problem when I can ask all of creation for the answer, right? So the only thing that makes me believe that there's a barrier between me and source and me and all of creation, all the geniuses of history, including God, is just my fear of being, my fear of communicating, my fear of communicating with source, with, you know, all those beings, those created beings that my body's eyes and ears can't see and hear. Now, then it says, so whoever transcends these communication limits, these perceived communication limits, they are merely becoming more natural. Whoever transcends these so-called communication limits, these so-called communication barriers between you and the rest of creation and you and source, they're just becoming more natural. That's all. So whoever transcends these communication limits, they're doing nothing special. So when you become, quote, psychic, you know, and you're able to hear the messages from beings that you can't see, you're just becoming more natural. You're not doing anything special. You're just becoming more natural. So all those folks, including everybody here, who can communicate with beings that other people can't see, that you can't see, with source, beings in another universe, beings in another world, beings in another country, they are just becoming more natural. They're not doing anything more. They are not doing anything special. Isn't that lovely? So when you communicate with source and you communicate with beings that are smarter than you, but that you can't see, and when you're communicating with beings that that are across the world or across the universe, you're not doing anything special at all. So you are just becoming more natural. And the only reason that you think you can't communicate with God and anyone in the universe is because you don't think you can. That's it. And the only reason you don't think you can is because you're afraid to, right? And why would we be afraid to communicate with source and all of creations and all these brilliant more evolved beings than us? Why would we be afraid to communicate with them? Why is that? Right? Why is that we'd be afraid to go, you know, more evolved beings who I'm one with? What is the answer to this problem? Right? Why is it we would be afraid to do that? That's the question. And yeah, because if we were to realize that there were no barriers to us communicating with them, it would also be the acknowledgement and recognition that we must not be this body. If I can communicate with source, or I can communicate with beings that are on the other side of the world or in another universe, another galaxy, then what does that mean? It means that I am not this body. It means that I am bigger than this body. It means that I'm so big that my being connects to, encompasses beings, other universes. That's what it means when it says no matter what kind of psychic ability you develop, it doesn't even faintly, remotely compare to the glorious surprise of remembering who you are. Right? And who is it that we are? Well, we're not a body, which means that our being is something that is as as big as creation, goes out to all of creation. That is a glorious surprise. I did not know that my being encompassed universes and extended and was connected to all of creation. That is a glorious surprise. You're not this teeny tiny little limited body, which is like a grain of sand, on a vast beach, right? Like, it's like thinking our body is who we are is like thinking that we are, you know, that we are a grain of sand on a beach. Yes, exactly. Shahir says, I am multidimensional. That is the glorious surprise. We are multidimensional. Our being encompasses the universe. Our being is connected to all of creation. That is a big surprise. That is a glorious surprise. Absolutely. Because we see ourselves as just this little body, this tiny little grain of sand on a vast beach, and we think that's who we are, right? So it is going to be a big glorious surprise when we remember who we really are. I'm not this separate little body grain of sand on a vast beach. I am unlimited. I exist in the mind of God. I'm not separate from the mind of God, and I'm not separate from all of creation. That means all of creation, and the more we learn about the universe, we realize that, it's massive, it's massive beyond what we can even conceive with our limited brains. I love it. Mary says, it feels sacrilegious for me to communicate with evolved beings. Exactly. Thank you for saying that. Because, we were talking about the only thing that keeps us from the only thing that makes us believe that there's limits on our ability to communicate with God and all of creation is our fear. And so, Mary, you spoke to that. And what's the fear? Well, we were taught that we're not worthy to talk to God. That's what we were taught. And then if you were raised Catholic, for sure, it's like you're so not worthy enough to talk to God, then you can you can only communicate with God through a priest who tells you what God thinks and what God wants. We were taught that we're not worthy to communicate with God. Like we need a medium. We need, an intermediary to communicate with God or with the angels, right? You're not worthy to talk to God or the angels or the saints. So you need an intermediary and you got to pay them. Okay. So now because that's the fear. We don't feel worthy to do that. I don't feel good enough, clean enough, innocent enough, holy enough. We were taught you're not holy enough to talk to God. For sure. And the only people who were holy enough to talk to God, they were thousands and thousands of years ago. And nobody has been holy enough to talk to God since. And anybody who says, I talked to God or I heard from God, what do we say about them? We say you need to go to a mental institution and take some medicine. Right. That's that's what we believe about our worthiness and our ability to communicate with God, the angels, more evolved, enlightened beings. So, right. Greg says there are no private thoughts. That's right. That's right. And so that's why the Course in Miracles is saying that realizing that you are in communication with God and all of creation, all the evolved beings, all the awakened beings, all the not awakened beings. The Course says that is a glorious surprise. It's a big surprise. Big surprise. God is communicating with you. The Course tells us God is speaking to us all through the day. Like, not only are you worthy to talk to God, but God is already talking to you all day long, all through the day. God's already, it's like, I not only can I communicate with God, but God's already talking to me all day long. That's a glorious surprise. Why would God want to talk to me? Says my ego. Why would God want to talk to you? Right. The Course in Miracles tells us God is speaking to us all through the day, all day long. God doesn't want any barriers of communication between us. That was not God's idea. The Course in Miracles says God is lonely when we shut our communication off from God. Can you imagine that? God yearns to communicate with us just like we unconsciously yearn to communicate with God. Did you know that God is yearning to communicate with you? God himself is incomplete without you. That's what A Course in Miracles tells us to tell ourselves. God himself is incomplete without me. God himself wants to communicate with me. God himself is lonely when I don't talk to God. Wow, that's hard to believe. That's a big surprise, huh? And the only reason it's telling us is that that we don't believe that we can talk to God and all of creation and all the evolved beings, and is that we're afraid. And why are we afraid? We're afraid, like, because of what Mary shared. We're afraid because we were taught that we're guilty. And we're taught that because we're guilty, God doesn't want to talk to us, that God doesn't want us, right? And so now, like Mary says, it feels sacrilegious to communicate with God or evolved beings. Wow. But I'll tell you what, there's never been a time that when I was afraid or in need and I turned to God and said, God, help me. Voice for God within me, help me to have peace. What is the truth here? There's never been a time that I turned to God and asked God, you know, Help me. What is the truth? What is it you know about me? What is it you would have me understand right now so that I can have peace? There's never been a time that I could turn to God to communicate with God somehow that I did not receive a miracle, a miracle, a miracle of healing, a miracle of peace, a miracle of joy, some kind of miracle. Right. So it was like, and that's what proves to us, oh, I guess God does hear me. I turned to God, asked God, communicate with God, and then I was answered in a way that I literally could not brush it off as just a fluke, you know. Um, it must be true that I'm one with God, that I'm in communication with God, and God wants to talk to me. God wants to communicate with me. Okay, talk about a glorious surprise. That is a glorious surprise. The Course in Miracles says that, like I said, that God is lonely without you. God yearns to be in communication with you. And the Course of Miracles says that God saw that God's communication channels, that's what the Course of Miracles calls us, God's communication channels. The Course says that God saw that God's communication channels were shut off to him. And God did not want to have God's communications channels shut off to him. And so God created the Holy Spirit, the voice for God that would abide within us and remain within us, to always make a link, that we would always have a link, that we would always have a bridge to God by which we could communicate to God and receive communication from God. And the only reason we are not experiencing that communication from God is because we're afraid to communicate with God. And so we don't experience God communicating back with us. So let's stop the communication blackout. let's resume talking to God. Okay. Every morning, my prayer routine starts off with, good morning, God. God, I give you this day. The only thing I would have be accomplished by this day is the will I share with you, which is the healing of mankind. God, I give you this day. God, I give you my body. Or if I'm struggling with something, I say, God, I give to you this fear, this guilt, this shame, I give you this problem. And I ask for your loving answer to this. What is the truth that you know about me that I'm forgetting right now? Obviously, because I'm not feeling good. I'm scared. God, what's your answer to this? God, how do you see me right now? What do you know is true about me? That's how I start my day. So I start my day in communication with God. And the Course in Miracles tells us in the workbook that after you've gone through the workbook, then ultimately the goal each morning is to give your day to God. You know, that you would be in communication with God all through the day, where you wouldn't need to practice your workbook lesson because you'd be talking to God all day long. You know, what does this mean, God? God, what is your will for me in this? God, what do you know to be true about me right now? Okay, so that's the goal here. Yeah, that's beautiful. Lovely. Hi, Greg, honey. Good to see you. All right. Thank you. Mary says, I'm grateful for you, Miss Anna. You always speak to me. Thank you. Right on. Wonderful. Bridget says, I will remember to do this every morning. Absolutely. There's another line in the Course that I love where it says that all God wants is that you would call God friend. You know, that it's like, you know, like God is like saying, I don't care what you call me, just call me. Just call me. Call that's what God is saying. Call me. I want to talk to you. I'm talking to you all day long. I want to tell you about yourself. And that's what the Course in Miracles says. The voice for God in us, all it wants to tell us is about ourselves, how our Creator feels about us, what our Creator wants for us. That's what the voice for God is always wanting to tell us, right? And the voice for God in us is the remaining communication link between us and God that we thought that we broke and that we thought that we lost, but it's not. That's what the voice for God is. It's like the communication link. It's the phone, it's the phone home voice within us. Right? The Holy Spirit is God's voice within us. God is like, I know you want to cut off communication with me, but I'm going to put within you my voice so that that communication link between us and God can never be broken. You can not utilize it. You cannot pick up that phone and talk to your Creator, but it's always there. You can't lose it. God made sure of that. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for making sure that the communication link between us could never be broken. Thank you, God. All right. Greg says, like any loving parent wants for their child. Exactly. That's all any loving, healthy parent wants, is to be in continual communication with their child so that they can remind their child, I love you. I'm here for you. Everything I have is yours. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You can't lose my love. Everything I have is yours for the asking. So, All right. Now, if you knew that, what could you fear? If you really knew that for a fact. All right. Beautiful. So, right. So anybody who is becoming more psychic, let's say, they're not doing anything special. There's no magic in their accomplishments. They're just becoming more natural. So as your communication with source and all of creation and these beings over here and these beings over here and your higher self, as your communication with beings that you can't see with your eyes and you hear with your ears increases, you're just becoming more natural. That's all. There's no magic in those accomplishments. All right, beautiful. Now, okay, so I'm going to put this up just so you remember where we're at. Okay. Beautiful. Now, paragraph 3. How are we doing on time? Okay. It says, the seemingly new abilities that you may gather on the way as you're developing your awareness, they can be very helpful. These seemingly new abilities that you may gather along the way can be very helpful. If you give these new, quote, psychic abilities to the voice for God in you, and they're used under Spirit's direction, then these so-called psychic abilities are very valuable teaching aids. So as you develop more psychic abilities and you give them to your higher self to use for you, and you use them under Spirit's direction, these your newly developed psychic abilities can be very helpful. I know you've all experienced this, how helpful your new psychic abilities are, right? They help you to truly be aware of what's really going on, and they enable you to hear answers in very unconventional ways. I'm always amazed at the answers that I hear from within my own mind that I could not have found if I was looking for those answers through conventional means. Now, to this, the idea about how your newly developing psychic abilities are used, the question of how they arise is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how your psychic ability arises. The only important consideration is how your newly developed psychic abilities are going to be used. Doesn't matter how they came about. Your psychic ability, your newly developing psychic abilities, it's just a matter of how you're going to use them. That's what's important. Now, if you take your psychic ability as ends in themselves, like, oh, the goal is to develop psychic abilities. He says if you're doing that, then no matter how your psychic abilities are developed, your psychic abilities will delay progress. Okay. If the goal is the psychic abilities themselves and not how they're being used for good, then now your psychic abilities become a delay in your spiritual progress. So if you are putting the importance on the psychic abilities, look at my psychic abilities, aren't they amazing? Your psychic abilities will delay your evolutionary progress. Nor does the value of your psychic abilities lie in proving anything, like achievements from the past, unusual attunement with the quote unseen, or special favors from God. And no one has any powers that are not available to everyone. I'm going to say that again. No one has any powers that are not available to everyone. So if you're using your psychic powers to prove that you have some kind of achievement from the past, or that you have some kind of unusual attunement with the unseen, or if you're using your psychic powers to prove that you have special favors from God, if you're using your psychic abilities to prove that you have some kind of power that everybody else doesn't have, then now your psychic abilities are now going to delay your evolutionary progress, because no one has any powers that are not available to everyone. Okay. Right. Because God doesn't work like that. God doesn't give some of God's creations abilities and powers that God hasn't given to all of God's creations. So that's the first thing you need to know about any psychic abilities that may come along the way of your uh, your path of increasing your communication with your source and all of creation. That's what we're doing here. We're increasing the communication between us and source and all of creation. Okay, that's what we're doing, and all of those abilities to communicate with source and with all of creation. That's an ability that everybody has. Right. Just because some people choose to utilize those and develop them doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't have them. They do. There are no there are no special favors that or special abilities that God has given to some but not to others. That would mean God is playing favorites, and God's not like that. Thank God, because God is truly loving. Okay, unlike us at the moment. Only by tricks of magic are special powers, quote, demonstrated. In other words, the belief that this is a special power is now it has turned your natural ability into tricks of magic. If you think that your psychic abilities are special powers, then what you're doing is you're turning it into tricks of magic. Okay? Only tricks of magic make for special powers. Okay? A special power is something that only some people have and everybody else doesn't have. And the only way to demonstrate a special power, something you have but other people don't have, is by magic. That's what magic does. Okay, that was paragraph 3. So, um, Mary says, sorry, it still makes me feel guilty. Like you said, it's fear. That's exactly right. Yes, exactly. Still makes me feel guilty. Right. Mary says, I sometimes have a hard time believing what the Course says, especially about psychic abilities. Right, exactly. And right. Um, yes, indeed. But Mary says, I want to believe everything it says. It's definitely getting better, but I still fight with it. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And Mary, we still fight with it because we don't accept yet that it's natural and that everybody has those abilities. So the way to reduce that fear of our psychic abilities, which everybody has, is to realize that it's natural. Everybody has it. It's only when you believe that psychic abilities are something that some people have and some people don't, that that's where the guilt and the fear comes in. But when you realize I don't need to fear it. Wow. Okay. Okay, my music just went way up without me even touching my tablet. There's a special ability to control electronics without touching them. I definitely have that ability. Hi, Daniel. Lovely to see you, dear. So, Mary, thank you for being honest about your fears of the so called psychic abilities. And what I hear it saying here is the way to decrease our fear of the psychic abilities is to remember that everybody has this ability to communicate beyond the body. Everybody has it. It's natural. Everybody has it. And the more we accept that it is natural and everybody's got it, only some people express it, some people don't. That's the way to decrease the fear and the guilt of the so-called psychic powers. Right? We call them psychic powers or psychic abilities. Course in Miracles is just calling it your natural ability that everybody has. Everybody has the ability to be in communication with other beings uh, beyond the body. Everybody has that, right? Uh, God is a being that you cannot see with your eyes or hear with your physical ears, who is communicating with you all the time. So we are always in communication with beings that we cannot see. They're always communicating to us, and we're always communicating with them. This natural. It's just natural. There are no unnatural abilities. There are no abilities that some people have that other people don't have. So, but thank you, Mary, for being honest about that. I love hearing the honest responses like that frightens me. That's hard to believe. Right. Thank you for saying that. Exactly. Hola, amigos. All right. Okay. So then in paragraph 4, it says, nothing is genuine that is used to deceive. Nothing that is genuine is used to deceive. So anything that's being used to demonstrate that you have something that other people don't have, any ability that somebody is using to demonstrate that they have a special power, that's something that's an ability they are using to deceive, which means that their ability is not genuine. So any ability that someone is using to demonstrate that they have some kind of special favor from God or special kind of power that other people don't have, that is not a genuine ability. That is an ability that is being used to deceive. So just know that. If somebody is so-called demonstrating a special ability and they're not affirming that everybody has this ability, if they're not affirming that they don't have a special favor from God, everybody has the ability to do this, then they are using that ability to deceive. In other words, it's magic that they're doing. Okay. Just so something that's good to remember when you are experiencing people demonstrating so-called special abilities or special favor from God. Okay. Nothing that is genuine is used to separate. Nothing that is genuine is used to demonstrate specialness. Okay. All right. Now, the voice for God in us is incapable of deception, and the voice for God in us can use only genuine abilities. What is used for magic, what is used for specialness, what is used for I have this and you don't, whatever is used for magic is useless to spirit. But what spirit uses cannot be used for specialness or magic. Okay. What is special to someone that everybody else doesn't have, that's not a real ability. That's not genuine. That's magic. And that's an ability that's being used for deception. And higher self can't use that. Okay. Now, there is, however, a particular appeal in unusual abilities which can be curiously tempting. Okay. Now, in these unusual abilities, these so-called unusual abilities that somebody may have, here are strengths which the healing spirit, the voice for God, wants and needs. Okay. If somebody has a so-called unusual psychic ability, that is an ability that God wants and needs. Okay. Um, but but when somebody has an unusual psychic ability of some kind, there is a temptation in that. People who have what we call unusual psychic abilities, there's always going to be a particular temptation. There's always going to be a temptation. What does it say? There is, however, a particular appeal in unusual abilities which can be curiously tempting. So, whoever has an unusual psychic ability will experience a temptation to use those abilities not as spirit would use them, but as their ego would use them. The ego will be tempting that person who has the unusual psychic abilities to use those unusual psychic abilities to demonstrate special favor, specialness of some kind, like I'm better or more worthy or have something that other people don't have. Of course, they will be tempted uh, in in that unusual psychic ability. But spirit, love, does want and need that unusual psychic ability of that person, even though the ego is going to be tempting that person to use those unusual psychic abilities to for magic purposes, for demonstrating specialness, how special attunement, or something special favor from God. Okay? Yet the ego sees in these same strengths, these unusual psychic abilities, an opportunity to glorify itself. So when somebody has an unusual psychic ability, the ego sees in that unusual psychic ability an opportunity to glorify itself. And the voice for love within that person wants and needs that unusual psychic ability to use it for the good of everybody, to demonstrate what everybody has and what everybody can do. Now, strengths turned to weakness are tragedies indeed. So, unusual psychic abilities, strength, which is used for specialness, is a tragedy indeed. Because what is not given to the voice for love within you must be given to weakness. So whatever ability that you're not giving to love, to God to use for you, is an ability that is now going to be used for weakness. Because what is withheld from love, whatever ability is withheld from love, is an ability that is given to fear, and that ability will be fearful in consequence. Right. Beautiful. So that was paragraph number 4. So, whatever abilities that you have, whatever abilities you have, if you're not using your abilities, your special abilities for love, then your special abilities will be being used for weakness. Now, whatever ability that you are withholding from love is an ability that you are giving to fear, and the result of that ability will be fearful in consequence. Right. So, this is another way to not be afraid of whatever abilities, whatever special abilities uh, begin to be developed within you as your awareness increases. So, if you're just joining us, back in the beginning, first and second paragraph, it was telling us that as your awareness of who you are and what reality is increases, as your awareness increases, you may well develop abilities, psychic abilities, that are startling to you. Now, the thing to do with those psychic abilities that do develop as your awareness increases, the way to not be afraid of them is to give those abilities to love, to spirit, to the voice for God within you to use for you, and to be aware of the temptation of your ego to use these new developing psychic abilities for specialness. Be aware of the temptation to use these newly developing psychic abilities for specialness, to demonstrate that you have something that other people don't have. And if you use your newly developing psychic abilities for specialness, then the results of your newly developing psychic abilities will be fearful, not healing, not, not healing, right, for you and others. But so, and why is this important? Because as your awareness increases, as your awareness of who you are as a spirit and not a body increases, you are going to have abilities, psychic abilities that are natural, that are going to be being strengthened and developed within you, because everybody has them. It's natural to be in communication with all the universe. It's natural to be in communication with source and all of the universe. That's natural. And so as your awareness increases and your psychic ability communication increases and develops, you're just becoming more natural. But if you don't know what it is, and you don't know what it's really for, and you don't give it to spirit to use for you, then it's going to create and produce more fearful effects, right? But that's just, you becoming more psychic is just what happens as your awareness that you're one with all the universe increases. And that's what A Course in Miracles is teaching us all the time. you're not separate, which means you're connected with all the universe and you're connected with the source of the universe, which means all that it knows you have access to. That means that your mind and God's mind are one. That means that what God knows, you know, right? Now, to you, it seems like, oh, my psychic abilities are increasing. But the truth is that you're just becoming more natural in your being in communication with source and all of creation. And so you need to know what it is, and you need to, as those communication abilities that we call psychic abilities are increasing, we need to give them over to the voice for love within us to use for us. And we need to be aware of and say no to the temptation to believe that those increasing psychic abilities mean special favor or mean special anything, right? That's and so it's important that we hear this, because that will happen, that is happening as your awareness of your oneness and your not a bodiness increases. This is what will happen. And everybody who's in this chat right now, I know you are experiencing more and more psychic abilities. I know you're experiencing your psychic abilities strengthening and deepening. And this is very helpful in reminding us what to do with them, and what to do with them. Give them over to spirit. Spirit knows how to use them. Spirit will use them for good for everybody. Spirit will use them to enable you to teach others that they also are not a body and are not limited in their communication with source and all of creation, which means they have access to all the thoughts of God. And now, if you have access to all the thoughts of God and all of creation, then what can you not accomplish? What can you not do? What can you not create? And why would you ever need to be afraid? Wow. And who can you not help anywhere in the world, past or future? Truly, if you are one with the source and one with all creation, who can you not help? Who can you not be helped by in all the universe? That's why it's so crucial that you understand what happens within you as your awareness of your oneness increases, and what to do with that, with the abilities that are will develop within you, that to you are quite surprising and quite startling, and, like Mary said, sometimes quite frightening. Greg says, by the time we speak a word, God already heard what we are thinking. Words in reality are a tiny delay. Exactly. So true. And then Greg says, now it makes more sense when we hear that God does not use words. That's right. And hi, Justin. Lovely to see you, dear. Okay. So I think we've got two more paragraphs. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these two paragraphs, and then we'll close up. So it says, so let's see. So you guys know where we're at right here. And it says, even those who no longer value the material things of the world may yet be deceived by, quote, psychic powers. Why? Because as investment has been withdrawn from the world's material gifts, the ego has been seriously threatened. And the ego may still be strong enough to rally under this new temptation to win back strength by guile. Many people have not seen through the ego's defenses here, although they are not particularly subtle. Yet, given a remaining wish to be deceived, deception is made easy. And so, if you are tempted, if you are tempted by the ego to uh, to to make special, to make yourself special because of these increasing psychic abilities, says now the so-called power of your psychic ability is no longer a genuine ability, and now it cannot be used dependably. It's almost inevitable that unless you change your purpose, unless you change your mind about the purpose of your increasing psychic abilities, then you will bolster your psychic abilities' uncertainties with increasing deceptions. Now, any ability that anyone develops, any ability, any psychic ability that anyone develops has the potential for good. To this, there is no exception. And the more unusual and unexpected the ability, the greater its potential usefulness. The healing plan of mankind has need of all abilities. All abilities are needed by the healing plan for mankind. Because what the world would destroy, the healing spirit would restore. And so-called psychic abilities have been used to call upon the devil, indeed. But you know what that really means when psychic abilities have been used to call upon the devil? You know what that really means? It just means that those abilities are being used to strengthen the ego. That's all. Right. That's all. It just means that somebody's psychic abilities are being used on behalf of the ego. That's all it means when so-called psychic abilities are being used to call upon the devil. What a waste of psychic abilities, which could be used for the healing of mankind. Okay. Yet here in these psychic abilities, here is also a great channel of hope and healing. Psychic abilities can also be a great channel of hope and healing in spirit service. And those who have developed so-called psychic powers have merely let some of the limitations they had laid upon their minds be lifted. That's all. I'll say that again. Those who have developed so-called psychic powers, those are folks who have merely let some of the limitations that they had laid upon their minds be lifted. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that they got special favor from God. It doesn't mean they have an ability and a power that other people don't have. It doesn't mean they have some kind of special attunement to the unseen realms. It just means that they have let some of the limitations they had laid upon their minds be lifted. And it can be only greater burdens that these folks lay upon themselves if they utilize their increased freedom, their increased mental freedom for further imprisonment. So if you're using your increasing psychic abilities for a specialness or to call upon the devil, then you're just utilizing your increased mental freedom for further imprisonment. It says that the voice for love within you needs these so-called psychic gifts. And those who offer to spirit their so-called psychic gifts and offer their psychic gifts to spirit alone, these folks go with God's gratitude upon their hearts, and love's holy sight is not far behind for these folks. So, as your awareness increases, your psychic abilities will also be increasing, because as your awareness of oneness with Source and all of creation increases, you will be lifting the limitations from your mind that you had laid upon your mind. You will be lifting the communication limitations that you had laid upon your mind. That's what will be happening as your awareness of your oneness increases. And the healer of the world, the healer of humanity, needs these needs the increasing freedom of your mind for the healing of humanity. And when you offer your increasingly free mind to the spirit of healing, then spirit's gratitude will be upon your heart, and spirit's holy vision will not be far behind for you. So, beautiful section. That's what spirit chose for us. I did the random number generator, put the 3 books in, and this is the section that spirit chose for us. I'm not sure why it chose this section for myself or for you, but I trust that spirit knows why it chose this section. I trust that you know why, that you are listening to this class at this time. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here and listening and sharing and supporting this. All right. So now for the closing integration meditation, I am going to read a little prayer poem from my latest book, Declaration of Independence for the New Earth. And that's going to be our integration meditation, is doing this. So if you would like to support this ministry and increase the strength of these ideas as they move out into the world, then you can like, share, and subscribe, or you can do a super chat. And also, I wanted to remind you about my new website. And on my website, I have a blog where I share uplifting, inspiring, healing ideas every day. So if you would like to have something like that, go to divinerevolutionarq.com. Also, if you want to know my teaching schedule, go to Divine Revolution ARQ. If you would like to learn about my holistic psychotherapy practice called Miracle Psychotherapeutics, or if you would like to schedule a one-on-one miracle psychotherapeutic session with me, then you can do that at my website, Divine Revolution ARQ. So going there, you have access to my blog. You'll have access to my Course in Miracles classes and readings. And also you can find out when and where I'm teaching, and also how to schedule a one-on-one session with me. I am a licensed professional counselor, and I have created a counseling practice that combines my 30 years of holistic counseling practice with A Course in Miracles for folks who would like some support going through some kind of transition or challenge, but they would like that from a professional counselor, but also from A Course in Miracles perspective. So go to Divine Revolution ARQ to schedule a session with me or to learn about that practice. So wonderful. Okay, and also if you would like to order this book, then you can do so on Amazon. So this is the integration meditation part of our class. And so what I'd like you to do is just close your eyes and breathe and receive. Just breathe and receive. Hear the truth. We are going to allow some of the limitations that we have laid upon our mind to be lifted. That's what we're going to do. We're going to allow some of the limitations that we have laid upon our minds to be lifted, so that you can be in glorious communication with your source and all of creation, so that your sense of isolation and loneliness can be corrected, can be healed, so that you can receive the answers to questions and problems that you have been carrying the burden of by yourself for far too long. The answers to your questions, the solutions to your problems, they are absolutely 100% available to you. They are waiting to give themselves to you when you allow some of the limitations that you have laid upon your mind to be lifted. Communication limitations. So I want you to close your eyes and take a breath and just breathe. And for a moment, I want you to see if you can experience yourself as you are, a spirit, a limitless spirit. I want you to say to yourself silently, I am one self. I am one self in communication with my source and all of creation. And all that my Creator has, I have. All the thoughts in God's mind are in my mind. There is but one mind, and that I share with God and all of creation. I am one self, united with my Creator. I am one with every aspect of creation, limitless in my ability to communicate with all life. And breathe. Communication is. Communication is. And all that lives is connected by communication forever. To be in communication is the nature of life itself. Communication is the how and the why we are one. Communication is the connecting link in the quantum web in which we all live, move, and have our being. Without boundary, communication pervades all space and all time. For creation is in constant dialogue with itself, speaking with us as naturally as breath moves through our body. Today, I retreat from the world into the quiets of nature to seek that sweet communication between creator and creation, that ecstatic communion, that does answer my every need, real or imagined. Communication is. Beautiful. Thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, and subscribing. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for sharing your questions. Thank you for sharing your very precious time and energy. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time I see you.